I've always hated Mondays. This will go down in history as one of my worst experiences. My wife Peggy was very depressed and in a bad mood. He prepares breakfast for me and the children as if he were a robot. She wasn't angry, just depressed. Doesn't help brighten up the morning. I don't know the reason and I don't want to ask. My sons Robert, 16, and Dave, 18, go to school when I go to work. For 15 years, I worked for a shipping company loading and unloading container ships. Although the work is hard, the salary is good. I always wanted to go to the beach and be as close to the sea as possible. My dream is to travel the world and meet different countries and people. It's in my blood, and sometimes I get angry because I know it will never happen. Home and family seem to be the most important. I'm happy with my personal life. I have 2 beautiful children and a loving wife whom I love very much. Unfortunately, it was Monday. The thing I hate most about my job is some of the people I work with. Colin Farrell is the most disgusting man in the world, and he still has 3 friends: Bob Timbers, Ray Collins, and Freddie Springer. The 5 of us went to high school together, and I didn't like him then, and I don't like him now. Hey Grady, I missed you at the party last Saturday. Colin seemed to be wearing the same clothes he'd been wearing that morning. There will be a corporate party on Saturday evening. The children and I had to go to Chester to help our father leave the house. My mother died 6 months ago, and my father decided to move to a small town. Peggy was disappointed, so I suggested that she not take us to the party. When we got home Sunday night, I asked her how the party went, and she simply said, "Everything was good." I just looked at Colin and didn't say anything. "We're sorry you couldn't come, Grady, but thank you for having a wife." She survived that night. I clenched my fist as I heard his pack of hyenas giggling like little girls. They seemed to laugh at me. When I left, Colin followed me and continued the abuse. "Grady, he's been fine since high school. You're very lucky to come home looking like this every night." I knew it would be a long day. The veins in my forehead began to pop, and I felt the tendons in my neck tighten. All my life, I have had difficulty controlling my temper. I tried to leave. I turned to the group and Colin slowly turned towards them. It was soft red underwear. "Peggy forgot last Saturday. Maybe I needed it because I had a red bra," the class laughed. I stood up without raising my eyes to look at her. Red silk fell onto the cement cargo plane at my feet. I'm too lazy to mention this. Suddenly I noticed that I was not breathing and that my abdominal muscles were tense. I was angry and ready to relax. I have no problem accepting them, but taking them all at once can be difficult. At this point, I don't care. As I approached the executioner, a large hand grabbed me by the shoulder. Harbor Master Josh Hamilton looked me in the eyes and simply nodded towards headquarters. Nothing was said. I looked at the group with a hatred I'd never seen in them before I followed Josh up the stairs. For some reason, everyone stopped laughing, and a worried expression appeared on their faces. Josh walked into Henry Clark's office, and I sat down opposite Sally, Henry's secretary. "Grady, would you like a cup of coffee?" "No, thanks. I'm so excited I can't even lift my cup." Through the glass wall, I could see Josh and Henry talking. He seemed serious. "Sally, did you go to the party last Saturday night?" She simply nodded. "Can you tell me what happened?" I didn't know what happened. Peggy didn't say anything, and I didn't know what to do. "I shouldn't have said anything, Grady. You should tell your wife." "You were there, Sally. You saw what happened. Give me a hint." Sally rummaged through the papers on her desk, trying to figure out how not to talk to me. "Sally, please, I need to know." Peggy showed up to the party in a cute outfit. After about an hour, Colin began serving drinks with a smile. Peggy and Colin finally made it to the back of the storage room. About 30 minutes later, Bob, Ray, and Freddie returned. I didn't see any of them for an hour. Then they reappeared laughing and joking. Peggy smiled, but she looked like a demon. Her hair and clothes were dirty. About 10 minutes later, he joined Colin. "Thank you, Sally. I didn't want to hear it, but it explains a lot." We sat in silence for another 10 minutes. Josh came out and invited me. "Grady, I'm not happy with what happened this morning. Colin, Ray, Bob, and Freddie each received a week of unpaid leave. This may be the first time you've heard about this. I cannot afford it. The cost of putting someone in the hospital. I don't think it's your fault. But I want you to make things right before I come back. I will do everything I can to help you. Just ask. Go now." As I left the office, I nodded to Henry and thanked Sally again. When I went to the parking lot, Colin and his kids were nowhere to be found. I left my panties on the platform. I didn't go home. I went north looking for a place to get lost. I spend a lot of time thinking about the past and present. Peggy and I went to high school together. She was tall, fat, unkempt, and completely unattractive. She didn't know how to dress or apply makeup. His hair still looks like crap. She does not belong to any in-group and is essentially a social outcast. Of course, I was obsessed with her. I am 1.90 meters tall and weigh almost 150 kilograms. I was tall, but also awkward, shy, nothing special. I was too clumsy to play sports. Colin Farrell is the complete opposite. He is handsome, eloquent, and physically strong. I know it sounds stupid, but rumor has it that the girls tried to convince Colin to take them out so they could eat some cherries. He never had a regular girlfriend, but he didn't date her either. I hate this boy. He brags about his victory, but the girls don't seem to care, except Peggy. Peggy tries to convince Colin to take her with him. He wants to be able to say that he was the first. Colin didn't just refuse, he told the whole school. He said he only fucked girls and wouldn't stoop to fucking dirty guys. The kids at school thought it was a joke, but Peggy was surprised. I thought this was my chance to move. Not knowing how to attract girls, I started acting out. We quickly became close, and after graduation, we became a couple. I made it popular. After school, I got a job as a construction worker. After a few years, my weakness disappeared, and all that remained was the muscles and tendons. I am physically strong and well-coordinated. Fortunately, he is no longer a clown. Peggy and I got married a year later. Robert and Dave were born close to each other, and Peggy soon began working out at a nearby gym. The transformation is amazing. Over time, she learned to take care of her hair, apply makeup correctly, and wear beautiful clothes. She is beautiful, and I am proud to have her as my wife. I loved her when she was a frog, and my reward was a princess. When I got a job on the loading dock, our whole life changed for the better. As I drove more miles, the A14 became the A1. I knew where I wanted to go. It was only a matter of time. I thought about my 2 children. They came from a great and powerful tribe, and they showed it. We make sure both are active so they don't get stuck like we do. Dave was about 2 inches taller than Robert and a little thinner. Robert had big hands and arms. They are both healthy and can take care of themselves. We teach them the importance of restraint rather than intimidation. They all have a common goal. I think that going to the sea is in my blood. I promised them that I would help them do whatever they wanted. Peggy was a wonderful mother and wife. He keeps his house in order and does not waste money on trivial things. Our sex life is amazing, at least I think so. Oral sex is an important part of our sex life. Sometimes he lets me in through the back door. He doesn't seem to enjoy anal sex very much, so it's not common. Her breasts were a little large, and although her body was toned from her workouts, her breasts were not. There's nothing wrong with that. They just look like real breasts and not plastic boobs hanging in the air. They rocked back and forth as she rode me. I always joke that if I'm not careful, it will swell. We had a great time making love, and I am very happy with this part of our life. Continue on the M6 and keep adding kilometers. The shadows are getting longer, and I hope to arrive before dark. Port Patrick is 7 hours away, but it's the only place I want to visit right now. I looked for A75 and finally found it at dusk. Duke's Duck has plenty of parking this time of year. I gave the key to the waiter and asked for a room for a week. I had no luggage, no change, no knife, but I didn't care. He took the room key, gave it to me, and hung the car keys on it. I drank a pint and sat in the far corner. A street lamp shines through the amber window next to my head. It's time to sleep and forget the world. I woke up very late in the morning, in my room. I vaguely remember how I got there. Usually local clients help me up the stairs and into bed. I never hid under the covers. I splashed water on my face and took a few showers. I have to wear the same clothes because the shower doesn't wash away the smell. I grew a beard. I've never had facial hair before, and it's a little unsettling to see myself in my current state. Every few days, they check my credit card to make sure the account is up to date. I've been feeling sad and tired for a long time. I sat there, glassy-eyed, looking at my target for the umpteenth time, when 2 men in uniform entered. I looked at her, but not at her. They talked to the waiter for a bit, and he nodded to me. He also pointed to my keys on the wall behind him. I thought they were looking for me. I am amazed at my own intelligence. They didn't even try to talk to me. For the next 2 hours, I drank only coffee. Grady Baxter, do you think you can talk to us? Did I do something wrong? We just need to talk. Are you ready? Can we go out? The sun was shining, but everything was wet. The cobblestones of the street in front of the tavern were smooth, and I slowly walked towards the street. It was downhill the whole way, and I still felt a little full. Fresh air filled my lungs, and I felt good. I don't smoke, but the air is thick, and the result is the same. I threw up on the granite wall. Since I haven't eaten much solid food in the last few days, I'm mostly eating liquid food. My mind became clearer and my eyes became clearer. My two comrades waited patiently for me to recover. I began to feel responsible for causing them so much trouble. The bench I was sitting on was wet, but I didn't care. Gentlemen, how may I help you? Since you have been missing for 10 days, we will try to find you first. Secondly, we are working hard to find Colin Farrell and hope you can help us. Well, you found me, so that part is over. I haven't seen Colin Farrell since the day I arrived. I think the waiter told you, and I didn't leave once I got to the hotel. I won't. T. I don't know where Colin is, but I think I'll look for him when I get home. I talked to them for about an hour. You can't blame me, they only seem interested in talking about Colin when they know he's safe. They contacted me because I was about to charge my credit card. If I make this mistake in the future, I will remember to do it again. I went down the mountain and bought clean clothes and a toothbrush. I decided to grow a beard for a while, even though it looked terrible. Finally, I took a shower, paid the bill, and went home. I stopped 4 times along the way. Twice they gave me food, but mostly I just wanted to delay my arrival. There was nothing beautiful or pleasant waiting for me at home, but I want to see my children. She is sitting on the sofa. There is only one light in the room. He put his hands on his legs and looked at me, but did not dare to move. He seemed to be crying, but it was hard to see in the dim light. I wanted to drink beer, but the thought made me sick, so I drank a cola. I sat down on the chair opposite her and waited for her to speak. The children spent the night with friends. It was my idea so we could talk in private. Why didn't you tell me before I found out? I don't know, he's probably scared. What? I'm not sure what you'll think or do. I did something stupid and it backfired. Is this counterproductive? What happened that backfired? Aren't you mad at me, Grady? I don't know. It might be better if you told the truth, but we'll have to wait and see. Grady, do you remember what Colin did to me in high school? And? Ever since it happened, I wanted to get back at him. The party last Saturday looked good, so I organized it for them. This doesn't sound like the story I heard. Listen to me, Grady. As I said, this backfired on me. I dressed very well and Colin began to seduce me. I convinced him it was working and he suggested we go back to the pantry. He kissed me and he had to make him angry to do it. After some time, he started playing with my breasts without a bra. I took off my panties and hung them in front of him, pulled him towards me and gave him an erection. Why did you do it? What do you think you did? I wanted to take revenge on him. I wanted him to pay for humiliating me. Anyway, I noticed the bulge in his pants, so I told him to take them off so we could have some fun. She came out and took off my pants and panties. And then I did something that girls shouldn't do. So, what exactly did you do? I pointed at his hard cock and started laughing. I told him that he was a pathetic excuse for a dick and that I would never let a guy with such a small dick fuck me. As she mocks him, his masculinity begins to disappear within himself. I still wanted to sleep. It sucks, but it's appropriate under the circumstances. I pulled myself together and opened the door to leave. Bob, Ray, and Freddie were waiting outside. Apparently, Colin told them they had a few seconds after he was done with me, and they waited patiently for their turn. I smiled and walked past them, towards the ladies' room. When I returned to the party, everyone had big smiles on their faces. They should have told everyone at the party who they were. The store deceived me. They said this in retaliation for Colin's humiliation. I got angry and left. I heard you went with Colin. It is not true. I left there alone and went straight home. Did you leave your underwear with Colin? No, I just walked away and forgot about them. Why did not you tell me? I was scared when they turned everything upside down. I do not know what to tell you. Make sure I only say this to all my colleagues. I feel like an idiot. They laugh at me for what happened, but I can't even answer because I don't know anything. C. It depends on your secretary. To find out what happened, his story doesn't exactly match yours. She wasn't there. I was there. What I told you happened. Damn, Grady, I'm your wife. You were supposed to protect me. Peggy began to cry and went into the kitchen. I sat with my Coke and watched as she leaned against the plastic table and cried quietly. This is what I like the most. She's the only girl I care about. He muttered a few words and turned on the water. Peggy plans to save her marriage. Sally had no reason to lie to me. I wanted to ask Peggy about all the inconsistencies in her story, but in the end I changed my mind. He can't change what happened. and forcing Peggy to admit something she doesn't want won't help him. I want to know the truth, but I can't get it from her. I decided to stop and let her relax. I took another shower and went to bed with my wife. He put his head on my shoulder, whispered that he loved me, and we fell asleep. I still have a few days before I go back to work. The guys were happy to see me, but kept their distance. I invited him to go to London, and he quickly agreed. Peggy seemed happy that the men in her family were related. On the way to London, I learned that both boys had been suspended from school for fighting, which is strictly prohibited in our country. They reluctantly explained that their mother's outburst at the party had upset them so much that they decided to call it a day. Many fair children have loose teeth and blue eyes. Instead of telling my mother about the suspension, I was asked to explain what kind of holiday it was. I put it aside. We contacted the Norwegian Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. I made 3 orders and the children were satisfied. It took an hour to fill out all the forms. I have all the necessary documents, including a birth certificate and passport. After a short conversation with each of us, we were given medical questionnaires for the doctor to fill out. We went to Wagama for dinner and then returned home. He decided not to tell his mother or friends. The exam ended the next day and all we could do was wait. I've always liked Peggy. She's the only girl I've ever loved. She's the only girl I've ever slept with. In fact, she's the only girl I've ever kissed. I can't believe I did something so disgusting. I find his behavior disgusting and unforgivable. If his story is proven, I will still give him a chance. But the odds are not in his favor. This weekend was the final nail in his coffin. Peggy is very attentive. He tried not to talk about the party or mention anything connected with it. She never mentioned my trip to Port Patrick. She did everything she could to get our lives back on track. That night she was very gentle in bed. After the lights went out, he bit my neck and slowly moved down my body. He had no hands, only a tongue and teeth. She sucked, kissed, and chewed on my now erect tool. I hadn't felt any relief in weeks, and it only took me a few minutes to let my warmth flow into her mouth as her lips slid over my swollen head. She held her head still until I stopped coming. Then I heard her swallow and start licking and sucking again. This time she held me tighter and rode me, slowing down and lowering herself until our pubic hairs met. He rubbed against me slowly and steadily. The lights were off, but I could still see his body bouncing up and down. She moaned slowly like an animal. It was a decisive action that quickly led to the desired result. She felt her legs shake as she placed most of her weight on her arms and made small circles with her hips. Her whole body tensed and trembled as she finally reached her first orgasm. Our bodies became hot and sticky, and it felt like the sheets underneath me were wet. Although the movements are still the same as before, they are not the same. Friction disappears. Now he was moving in and out of the tunnel, soft and wet. I felt her body move up and down mine, but the only sensation around my penis was warmth. He continued his movements, and the heat turned to heat. Soon I felt him answer again, and he finally came. I raised my hips and fired a second shot into his waiting body. She pushed me, and we struggled until I finally collapsed from exhaustion. She got up and lay down next to me, and we slept until the morning. The next day, I was surprised at how stupid the breakfast was. Either she's stupid, or she thinks I'm stupid. I looked at her in surprise. I think it's great, honey. Being a man now, I don't know much about pregnancy, but it's been almost 3 weeks since the party, and it's entirely possible that Peggy missed her period and covered her bottom. This gave me a new perspective, and I decided to change my schedule. The kids returned to school, and I had a chance to talk to them a little before they left. They seemed to understand my situation and their mother's situation better than I did. I feel better knowing that she is with me again, and that she will come back no matter what. I'm not sure what to expect at this point. I spent most of the day looking for Colin Farrell. It must be somewhere. I crossed the harbor to talk to Sally during lunch. Bob, Ray, and Freddie returned to work, but she doesn't know what happened to Colin. Rumor has it that he was afraid that I would follow him. It doesn't make sense because I'm a peaceful person. I avoided the work area to avoid my 3 tormentors. That same day, I visited a local lawyer and completed the necessary paperwork for Peggy's divorce. He didn't want to hurt her, but he didn't want to live with her anymore. The children will soon be alone, and I see no point in staying here. The only thing I can't fix is thanking Colin and his kids for ruining my marriage. He knew that Peggy was guilty, but he could not punish her. Your loved ones will pay for your lack of judgment. Freddie Springer was married, but he always stopped by McMurray's for a beer before returning home. It was completely dark when he walked out the side door and walked along the wall behind the car. I was surprised when I grabbed his left hand and put it behind his back. I made him run full speed towards the wall and heard something crack as his face hit the brick. His knees were slightly bent, but I grabbed his arm and began hitting his kidneys with my right fist. I clenched my fist and heard my ribs crack as he pushed me. I must have hit him 20 times before his arm left his shoulder. I dropped it on the cobblestones as a group of people walked down the corridor. No one was following me. I calmly walked to the car and drove away. 2 hours later, he arrived at the police station. Peggy had just mortgaged her house and was doing paperwork. Alice Springer started screaming that she was going to lock me up forever. They tried to take her away from me, but she wouldn't shut up until Peggy spoke to her. I don't know what Peggy said, but Alice looked at us both like we were trash and walked away. Robert and Dave drove me home in my car with Peggy. The children seemed proud of me, but I tried not to say or do anything that might please them. Freddie suffered a dislocated shoulder, a broken nose, 2 black eyes, and several internal injuries that could not be fully identified. 4 ribs were broken, but fortunately the lungs were not punctured. When we got home, my wife and I didn't talk about it anymore. I slept on the couch for the first time in 20 years, but it didn't bother me. The next morning, I woke up early and wondered what to do next. Osaka Maru unloads at Felixstowe. Captain Jose Costa was a good man and offered to hire me as soon as I received my documents. I promised to get back to him before the weekend. On the way back, I stopped to refuel. As soon as I finished speaking, I noticed someone running towards me. I turned around and Ray Collins was hitting 2 of the 4 balls to my left. The wood bounced off my left hand and broke several ribs. I closed my eyes in pain and leaned forward. I remember trying to breathe and couldn't. I closed my eyes, saw a bright white flash, and felt my knees go weak. The stick bounced off the asphalt and made a strange clicking sound. After the battle, Lay couldn't stand it anymore. As I fell, my right hand flew forward and grabbed the flannel. I hit the ground with my right flannel fist and was able to turn left. I felt myself landing heavily on top of Ray. I kept my eyes closed and tried to numb the pain in my left side. I can't move my left arm. When my right hand began to move up and down, I acted on instinct. I don't know what I'll run into, but as long as it's not asphalt, I'll be fine. Both sides of my body work independently. While my left side tries to defend itself, my right side attacks whatever it finds. At first, Ray squirmed under me and tried to free himself, but after a few seconds, he stopped moving. I didn't stop beating the buyer until he undressed me. I still couldn't breathe, and it hurt like hell. The doctor gave me an injection, and I slept the whole way to the hospital. A few hours later, I woke up with my left arm bandaged and my body tied up. I can breathe, but be careful. Peggy stood there looking miserable. Damn it, Grady. What do you think you're doing here? They take this game seriously. Sorry, honey. I did not do anything. Why did your friend attack me with a truck? What does uninvited guest mean? I will continue to talk to people. Do not say anything. Follow them and kill them. I smiled broadly at him. Why would I do something like that? Stop laughing at people. Stop calling them friends. Peggy continued as the doctor entered. I was damaged rather than broken. When he was little, Ray turned into a tree. My arms were damaged and the cracks in my ribs were superficial. Pain and difficulty breathing are simply the result of the impact. Robert and Dave picked me up early the next morning. They were smiling from ear to ear and I told them to do it. Ray was in bad shape. He ate through a straw for about a month until his jaw healed and the swelling in his face went away for at least a week. The unexpected blow broke his left collarbone. Of course, all the hits were wrong because I had no idea what I was hitting. I was not charged with anything because several people testified that Ray attacked me first. I had to go back to work and take another week off, this time due to illness. I spoke to Sally for a bit and she told me that Bob Timbers had quit his job and they were sending his last salary to his brother's house in Aberdeen. They still don't know where Colin is. Peggy and I don't communicate well. Now I sleep on the couch every night. I quickly removed the bandage, but my ribs still hurt a little. At least I could move and breathe normally. The Osaka Maru was scheduled to sail in 4 days. I went to my lawyer. The divorce papers were ready and I gave him 4 days to serve them. I left everything to Peggy. She will keep the house, but if I refuse, the escrow company will keep it. I'd worry less. I included a copy of my vasectomy records and a recent sperm lab report with the divorce papers. I made a few phone calls to friends in Scotland and spent some time in the gym recovering from the 2-on-4 attack. Henry Clark was unhappy with my departure and agreed to keep it secret as long as possible. I asked him to take care of my children if necessary. Peggy stopped going to the gym and the whole family was upset. The flooding has stopped and the general appearance of the area has deteriorated. The cooking was very simple and the entertainment was not at all interesting. I swear he still looks fat. 4 weeks later, the world fell apart. The next day, I received a set of shipping documents. I've never seen her so happy. The three of us were ready to go. I suggest you wait until the end of the school year before making a decision. I don't think they listened to me. I returned to Osaka Mara to take care of what needed to be done. The next morning, before leaving, the mayor gave me a list of things to prepare. I gathered my gear, checked into my room on the ship, and left the ship for the last time. Robert parked his Triumph Bonneville 750 at the end of the dock. Within minutes, I was on my way to Aberdeen. An 8-hour motorcycle ride is no fun. The Triumph was shaking so violently that the odometer was no longer visible. The engine ran great, the weather was great, but I was still glad I came. My friends found Bob Timbers and wanted to add him to the Four Crowns team. The men's restrooms are located at the back, and you will have to leave the building to access them. I stopped and looked around to let my friends know that I had arrived. Then I walked to the edge of the building and waited. The first two guys were local, but then Bob came out. Walking into the bathroom, I heard the door close behind him. Walking down the corridor as Freddie, I grabbed his right hand and pressed his head against the stone wall of the building. While walking, he hit his entire face on a stone and fell. I walked about 50 feet and threw him against the wall. He half moaned and half cried in pain. Through the dim light on the side of the road, I saw that his right eye socket was filled with blood. The cheekbones under the eyes are clearly visible, and the entire face is covered with large scratches. "Don't kill me, Grady. Please don't kill me. What a disgrace. It's a shame." I didn't intend to kill him again, but I didn't see the point in telling him about it. "I'll give you a choice, Bob. Tell the truth about what happened at the party, and I'll let you live. If you lie to me, you're dead." But, I hurt Grady. "Damn, talk and I'll find you a doctor." Colin was very upset when Peggy didn't bring you to the party. He started bragging about how he was going to make her come and fuck her in the ass. Honestly, it looked really good, Grady. She was dressed to the nines. Obviously wanting to have a good time. Colin started giving us drinks and told us we could drink as much as we wanted. We didn't expect it to be a success. After a while, he led her back to the pantry, and we followed him. "Are you sure you want to hear this?" "Honey, wait, and..." "Okay, but don't hurt me anymore." We hear Colin and Peggy enter. She moaned and talked dirty like a girl from a porn movie. We were very happy to hear this. Colin opened the door. Peggy was lying on the sofa with her knees up and her bush exposed. He was full of cum. Her shirt reached to her waist and exposed her breasts, with a wide smile on his face. We took turns making love while they fucked her. She started giving us blowjobs. Grady, we never hurt her. We never forced her to do anything she didn't want. Colin and Freddie fucked her ass, but Ray and I didn't like it. So, after she was nearby, we helped her get dressed. She and Colin came out, and I think they were somewhere before he left her. It stopped somewhere, but I'm not sure. It's Grady. Too bad. Honestly, that's what we did. I wouldn't mind stopping her or forcing her to do something she doesn't want to do. I just saw this. Do you know where Colin Farrell is? He just shook his head subconsciously. This man has no right to lie to me. Her story sounded more like what Sally told me than what Peggy told me. His face looked disgusting in the yellow light. The bleeding increased, and the dark circles under my eyes became even darker. His cheeks were covered in scales, and the flesh underneath was bright red. I knocked on the bar's closed door, shook hands with an old friend, and got on my bike. After walking a few more miles, I caught up with an ambulance heading towards the bar. Early in the morning, I parked the Triumph and drove it to Osaka Mara. Robert will return the bike later. That night was my first shift, so I spent the rest of the day traveling. This damn bike amazes me. I need to go there. A few hours later, I woke up, took a shower, and had dinner. My boss gave me a job description, explained my responsibilities, and then left me alone. This is a job for beginners. It's not particularly difficult or interesting. My team was not friendly or helpful at all. They answered all my direct questions, but offered no help or advice, and no one seemed interested in contacting me. I would really like to communicate with other employees, but it seems difficult. They seem friendly with each other, but I was not in their circle. I decided to wait. Peggy noticed that I had left. Divorce papers must be filed in the morning. I'm sure Bob Timbers told the police his whole story. I see my two demon children laughing at each other as they talk about current events. The meeting ended and I went to bed. 2 days later at noon, I was called into the captain's office. When I stood in front of Captain Costa, he didn't look happy. Mr. Baxter, the Royal Navy has requested permission to land a helicopter on the Osaka Maru to return it to the mainland. This morning I received a long telegram explaining the reasons for your request. Let me summarize a few points regarding shipping. Order, if there is something wrong, please explain. I simply nodded. They want to talk about the disappearance of a man named Colin Farrell. He is accused of attacking a man named Fred Springer, causing him to lose a kidney and put him at risk of losing his second kidney. This promise was denied to him. Charges. They were accused of maiming a man named Ray Collins. The charges were brought in self-defense, but were changed due to the severity of the circumstances. Because the night you boarded the ship, you attacked a man named Bob Timber in Aberdeen and beat him so badly that he lost his right eye. I don't know how you ended up in Aberdeen at the same time. I don't want to know. What we are saying here is that all this chaos was caused by bare hands, and this revenge is a personal insult. Do you have anything to say about this, Mr. Baxter? Sir, I am truly sorry that I caused you any trouble. I mean the accusation. If I could find Colin Farrell, he would be in hospital with 3 other children. I don't know where that bastard is. I'll pack my bags and be ready when the helicopter arrives. Captain Costa just looked at me and smiled. Not necessary. I told them you've never been on a boat. Grady Baxter was not aboard the Osaka Maru. Now get back to work. I returned to the crew quarters, took a shower, and got ready for my shift. By the time I finished dinner, news of the police report had spread throughout the group. I still have friends with whom I will spend the rest of the trip. At home before the trip, I didn't talk to anyone for a month. I received a telegram from my lawyer. The divorce is settled and I am now a free man. When I left the country, Peggy donated the house to a bond company. Colin Farrell was taken to hospital with serious internal injuries and 2 broken kneecaps. Police are searching for Robert and Dave in connection with the attack. My children found Colin and Peggy in our room before locking the house. Peggy now lives in Austell with her sister. She became pregnant and her previous weight problems returned. The charges are still pending and my lawyer has advised me not to return. He doesn't know where my children are. This news gives me mixed feelings. The next day at breakfast, the captain walked past the table and stopped. I just wanted to let you know that Robert and Dave Baxter were not on the Tanaka Maru bound for Cape Town. We both laugh. I always wanted to be a sailor.